it wasn't a sudden thing, it was gradual. And I couldn't do this a while ago because the technology wasn't there. This has been a very simple, logical progression, and I had to, when I started in media, it was still mass media that was governed and owned by people who were rich enough to buy the radio station, a TV station, to pay for the license. That's just how it was. And I worked my way up through that system, as undemocratic and as kind of awful as it was. But I'm glad I did, because I learned a lot of skills. It was a very valuable experience for me. I built an audience, in mainstream media. But thank goodness that audience stayed with me, and that when the opportunity came to do this on my own, and the technology came along, like Skype, things like Ustream and Stickam, inexpensive switching equipment, inexpensive camcorders. All of this stuff is new technology that didn't exist. Once it was here, and once my audience had enough bandwidth to be able to watch live, to be able to listen, to be able to download it, once iPods came along, I was ready to take advantage of that, because I had worked these 30 years in mainstream media, and I understood a little bit about it. And thank goodness I had an audience that was willing to follow me into this new territory. If you're Martha Stewart, it's a lot harder to take advantage of new media, because your audience isn't technically savvy. But my audience is. I speak to geeks who love watching stuff on the internet, who completely understand how to watch a podcast or listen to a podcast, who have MP3 players, who have high-speed internet. So this is a very natural thing for me and the community around me to participate in. In time, I think Martha Stewart could take advantage of it. Everybody can take advantage of it. But right now, we can be the leading edge of this because we've got the audience to do it. The word podcast really didn't come into currency, and the earliest proto-podcast didn't exist until September 2004. I did my first podcast October 2004. It was my radio show. I'd already been recording it, editing it, putting it out on the internet. All I did was add an RSS feed. Now it's a podcast. We started TWiT in April 2005. So I've been doing this now for almost 5 years. It'll be 5 years in April. And in fact, I'm celebrating my 5th year of my first podcast. Last month we celebrated. I didn't do anything, but I should have. Started doing live streaming video on a regular basis in May of 2008. So I've been doing that for about 1.5 years now. And then we're moving to the next level of that. We're going to offer video downloads, and eventually, I think, to 24/7 video stream over the next year, say. So what's nice is it's gradually built up. I never took any investment. We just bootstrapped it up started with donations from the audience. Then we started getting some advertisers after a couple of years. Now we have solid advertising base, so we've got some revenue to start adding content and adding hosts and adding technology, things like more cameras, more switchers. So it's nice. We're slowly building up. I think it's building up at an appropriate pace. It's not too fast, not too slow. I don't wish I could do more all of a sudden. I'm actually glad I can't, because I would have made some stupid mistakes if I'd had the money to make them. So I think it's for some reason, it really has always felt like there was never any effort. It just naturally happened at the right time. People came along when I needed them, and just out of nowhere they just appeared. It's always felt like this is kind of the right thing, and there's never been any effort. It's really kind of been remarkable. The whole point of the internet is that anybody can do a website cheaply at any time. And there's no economic reason why that should be otherwise. Yes, there are economic forces. There are these big companies who would like to get everything for themselves, but that's not necessary. And they try to paint it that way. Oh, if we let people do whatever they want, there wouldn't be enough bandwidth, or we would, it costs. No, there's plenty of bandwidth. There's dark fiber everywhere. There's plenty of money to be made for everybody. We're not talking about bankrupting these companies. They're just simply being greedy. They want it all for themselves. We can't let them. When CNET first started, I was like the number 3 or 4 person at CNET. When they first started, they came to me. I was doing a radio show, and they said, our plan is to do a 24-hour cable tech channel. Now, this was in 1993, I think, or 92. And they asked me to do a little due diligence. How much would it cost? And I came back and I said, Well, it's $50 to $100 million a year. It's gonna, and oh, by the way, you won't make any money for at least 5 years. It took CNN 10 before they made any money, penny one. At which point, Halsey Minor, who was one of the principals, said, I guess we won't do a cable channel then. It was just too expensive. So, I mean, $50 million a year, and you're going to lose money for 5 years. It's $250 million to start a new cable channel. Clearly, that's just not viable for an individual, for a person like me. It's not even viable for somebody who has venture funding, who's like, it's not viable for very many people at all. That's the whole point. Mass media is completely dominated, completely controlled by mega corporations and incredibly wealthy people. That's the only people who can afford it. And they get to choose who gets a chance to be on the air. You have to go to them begging. New media, anybody can do. If you want to do a podcast, all you need is a computer and internet access. Period. That's all you need, and that's most podcasts. That's all they've got. It's Yochai Benkler, who wrote an incredible book, which everybody should read, called Wealth of Networks. It's available free online. Harvard University Press publishes it. Estimates in that book that about 1 billion people globally, 1 billion people, have the ability to create media. They have the internet access, they have the computer, maybe they have a video camera or a microphone. 1 billion people. Contrast that to the maybe 3 or 4 dozen people who could afford to own a television or radio station in the U.S., and the maybe thousands of people who got a chance to speak on that radio or television. 1,000 people versus 1 billion people. Which is better, I ask you? My plans change regularly, but my current thinking is I would like to be the CNN for Geeks, a 24/7 channel on the internet. You can tune in anytime, and whenever you tune in, there's going to be smart people talking about interesting things having to do with science and technology. And that's it. It's going to be live. It's going to be authentic. It's never going to be blow-dried hair. It's never going to be polished. It's always going to be people who maybe don't look like they belong on real TV. But they'll be smart and they'll be interesting, and you can tune it in anytime. That's my goal, and I think we're very close. I mean, the ability to do that is here. We have the technology. It's just a matter of amassing the people to make it happen.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you.